Good evening, my name is Katarzyna Nowicka and welcome to Poland Daily News. The second edition of the Vision for Development Forum started in Gdynia with the participation of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. This is one of the most important economic events of the second half of 2020. During his speech inaugurating the forum, the Prime Minister said that the time of the pandemic is a turning point in the economic history of the world. According to Morawiecki, Poland in 2050 will be a window for the East to the West and a window for Western Europe to the East. It will simply be the center of Europe.
Zwyciężą te państwa, które...
The winners will be the countries which will base their economic development on automation, robotics, and at the same time will be able to engage the workers, not leave people on the sidelines and include them in the process of economic development. And this truth leads us to the concept of a balanced vision of development. This is our fundamental premise, to get people involved and at the same time focus on the most modern technologies. We need to build on lasting foundations of our Polish culture, tradition and history. I need to bring this up on the occasion of this centennial of the Battle of Warsaw. We would not be here today if not for the fantastic victories of our predecessors. We also have with us today some of those brave predecessors from the freedom fights 40 years ago, of the era of solidarity. This is exactly the model I am speaking about, the inclusive model, the way to include. This was the dream of our predecessors.
To się marzyło naszym przodkom.
In an interview for Sieci Weekly, President Andrzej Duda warned politicians of the United Right against arrogance of power and loss of contact with ordinary Poles. The president declared that he would be a critical reviewer of the activities of his political camp.
I believe that the victory of the United Right in 2023 is possible, if this formation manages to avoid the effect of the observable arrogance of power which annoys people the most, if we manage to defend Poland from the economic crisis, maintain the jobs, return to the path of dynamic development. If there is anything I can advise my colleagues is this: be close to the people, and I will keep an eye on that.
Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki convened a meeting of representatives of parliamentary clubs and the main political forces in the country on Wednesday to discuss the situation in Belarus. Representatives of the Belarusian regime threaten to use force against demonstrators. In a film published on the internet, President Łukaszenko parades among special forces officers with a machine gun. Yesterday, hundreds of thousands of people across Belarus once again took part in anti-government demonstrations. Demonstrations against Alexander Łukaszenko took place during the weekend in many Belarusian cities. The largest such demonstration was organized in Minsk. It is estimated that 250,000 people took part in it. The demonstrators called for 3 demands to be met: Łukaszenko's resignation, the release of all those detained during the demonstrations to date, and the prosecution of those officers of the regime who committed violence and acts of torture against demonstrators. I think that everyone here on the square is afraid, and there is a reason to be scared, because our government has already shown how it can treat its people. But there is faith, more faith than fear, so that's why we came here today. I came out here because of the injustice, endless lies, lies from the media, lies from the president, lies from all of the government organizations leading us. I want change. I want freedom. I want to live in a free country. I don't want my children to leave. I want them to stay here and raise their children here. During Sunday's protest in the capital of Belarus, militia trucks and buses appeared in the city center. As the defense minister of Belarus emphasized, if the demonstrations do not stop at the memorial sites, he will send special forces against the protesters.
We can't sit back and watch how protests are being held at these sacred places, where fascists organized mass killings of Belarusians, Russians, Jewish people and other nationalities. We cannot allow this. We categorically warn: any violation of peace and order in such places, and you will have the army to deal with, not the police.
не с милицией, а с армией.
The demonstrators gathered in the Independence Square celebrated a minute of silence for the victims of violence. As confirmed by local media, the body of a 28-year-old man who was on the missing person list after the protests was found yesterday at 2 p.m. Our resistance is a marathon. The regime cannot deal with this marathon, but we can. We have the will, strength, and support of each other. We should all write, go out, speak out, stand up, complain, be uncooperative, boycott, do not agree, and keep it up. As the head of the Chancellery of the Prime Minister, Michał Dworczyk, informed, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki issued an invitation today to a meeting on the situation in Belarus to representatives of all parliamentary clubs, which is to take place on Wednesday. Grzegorz Wierzchowski, the curator of education for the city of Łódź, fired on Saturday, claims that his dismissal is connected to a statement criticizing the LGBT ideology in the media. The province governor for Łódź, Tobiasz Bocheński, and the minister of education, Dariusz Piątkowski, deny these accusations. According to them, the reason behind the dismissal were the man's bad relations with the local government and complaints from students' parents.
The Łódź curator of education says that we have the virus of LGBT, and I say that the curator got the virus of stupidity, and not for the first time. He should be immediately fired, right here and right now. The Łódź curator of education should be immediately dismissed. If Minister Piątkowski is on leave, then there is always someone who steps in for him. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your support. I confirm that yesterday I received the information about my dismissal from the function of the curator of education. I met with Minister Piątkowski on Wednesday. He said nothing then.
I confirm G. Wierzchowski informed me about his dismissal by the minister. I know nothing of the reasons behind it. Grzegorz has been fighting with the LGBT organizations for years, all on his own, as they have been entering schools with the help of the local governments of the Civic Platform Party. He fights them in courts. He defends children.
We have been considering the dismissal of the Łódź curator of education for a long time, and it had no connection to his statements in the media concerning LGBT. It's a shame that a member of our coalition did not want to get more information on the actual reasons for the dismissal of Mr. Curator at the source.
The Ministry of Health presented a new report on the coronavirus pandemic in the country. During the last 24 hours, the most cases of new infections have been recorded in the provinces of Silesia, Lesser Poland, and the city of Łódź. However, for the first time in a while, the number of new daily infections has not surpassed 100 in any of the provinces.
On Monday, the Ministry of Health informed about 548 new coronavirus infections and 5 people lost their lives during the last day. In total, 62,310 people have been infected in Poland and 1,960 died due to the disease. As the ministry informed, 42,448 people have been cured since the outbreak of the epidemic.
That's all for tonight. Now on to Poland Daily Business with Aleksander Wierzejski and his guest. Good night.